Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. It's Kaisar Ahmed Raja. Hopefully you are doing well. I do apologize for a few minutes delay. We had some technical problems that we had to address, but here we are. And I certainly hope that your Ramadan is going well. That is if you are watching it now, but if you're watching it later, then obviously this part won't be relevant to you. Let's make a formal start. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Today's our session is about the secularism and the identity crisis that we've seen unfolding in Muslim youth, and not necessarily it is unfolding across the board, but there are questions still people like to ask how to navigate through in these testing times. Before we make a start, let me make the introduction. Today we are at the International Open University. The organization is led by Dr. Bilal Phillips, and let me actually read it to you so that I don't mess it up. So I welcome you on behalf of International Open University and on behalf of Dr. Bilal Phillips. This is the session. It's all about the secularism and the identity crisis. Now, before we begin, a brief introduction to IOU. The university was founded by Dr. Bilal Phillips with the aim of making authentic Islamic education accessible and affordable to students around the world. It offers a range of Islamized degree programs, including Islamic studies, education, psychology, information technology, and Islamic finance. Alhamdulillah, students from across the globe are benefiting from these programs while being able to balance their studies with work and family responsibilities. With that, we begin today's session. May Allah place barakah in our time together. Ameen. Now, the secularism, it comes at different levels. Now, you have the state level secularism, which I will go into in a minute, what that exactly means or what it doesn't mean, but people still think it means. And then there is secularism at the individual level. So far as the state level secularism is concerned, there are so many different theories about it, what it actually is. If we are to believe the early scholars promoting secularism, their understanding is much different from what we have today. For example, if we employ Holyoake here, he was very clear about secularism, that it's a system which is adopted by people who don't believe in hereafter, who don't believe in divine, who don't think that the divine has anything to do with our everyday life. So the worldly affair is something that we are restricted to. Anything beyond that, well, that is not our concern. So this is pretty much what a standard view had been. But now, with much refinements to it, a general idea is that this is where you separate the state and religion. It used to be church and state, but now in general, religion and state. The question is why? Well, no one seems to have any answer. There have been people, I can tell you that, who've tried to make this happen across the globe, but it failed. People like Peter Berger, for example, if you read them and if you look at the movements originating in 1960s, the movements such as the secularization hypothesis. It's academically speaking, at least, even at the policy level, there have been efforts, and the idea was that the more of science and technology we see taking part in human life, on the other side, a proportionate level of reduction in religion will also emerge. So more science and technology, less religion. That's essentially what the idea was. But it didn't happen. Almost all the proponents, they gave up and said, no, it did not happen because we cannot kill religion. And there's a good reason for it. And the reason is that the science can deal with a lot of your material problems, but we are not driven by matter. People need to understand this. We are driven by the immaterial. By that, I mean our worries that don't have any material properties, our desires that don't have any material properties, our wishes and ambitions, and so forth. All the luxury life we have today, much of that is matter driven, for example, big houses and cars and you name it, all the technology we use right now, the technology we are using in this very session. But it, our existence does not depend on this. Because go thousands of years back, go to certain places in the world where people used to live in caves, for example, and they were the gatherers, or maybe they were hunters, and they would hunt every day. They didn't have all these material benefits, but they existed. That is the point. So what we are saying is that it is the immaterial that matters more, because those people, they had the same ideas about the safety and progression. Obviously, they could not conceive Wi-Fi and the rockets and the space technology and so forth, but contemporary to them, they also wanted to do something better. And we can see a lot of manifestation of that in history. For example, we see different types of weapons in the archaeological record. So they were thinking about making better weapons, new weapons. So this is how that had taken place. But religion is important because it deals with immaterial. The metaphysical aspect that no one can deny, the supernatural element in human life that no one can deny, unless you are an aggressive atheist and, for all you care is that, I am going to reduce everything to scientific materialism and that is the only truth. You cannot go beyond that. If you are that sort of a person, then obviously that's a completely different conversation. We are at this stage just analyzing the historical failure of secularism, why it failed. And so far what we've discussed is that it failed because it did not address the immaterial aspect in human life. Well, religion does. When it comes to Muslims in particular, what we need to understand is that we have no conception at all of separating state from the politics or apologies, religion. Why? Because our religion is not a set of ideas that you have in your life, and among those ideas you also have religion. So for example, you have music, and you have other forms of art, and you have other forms of culture, and then you have media, and then you have politics, and you also have religion one day a week. No, we don't have that. What we have is our religion, and then everything else is underpinned by that religion. So it's a complete way of life, politics included, state included. So one cannot conceive the idea that I am going to be a Muslim, but within that I'm going to separate the rulings and the laws. I mean, who will make those laws? Where will those laws come from? Islam is very clear. When you join the club, just like any membership club, you sign according to certain terms and conditions. And once you have signed up, well, that's that. It's not that, next day you decide to do things your own way. You have to abide by them. So what Islam says is that Islam wants to deliver a society which is based on justice. Based on justice. Well, next question, how do we preserve justice? Not morally. You cannot preserve justice morally. You can keep justice morally, but there is no court of morals which can physically stop someone or can punish someone for violating morality, or violating justice, I should say. We don't have that. So what we have is court of law, on the other hand. So Islam wants to deliver a society which is based on justice, and that justice can only be delivered by the state through laws, which means that the Islamic conception of justice can only be protected by the Islamic law, and that law cannot come from an individual. That has to come from state. Therefore, you cannot separate the state and religion of Islam. It's that simple. Now, you can elaborate much on that, and indeed people have. In fact, as we speak, I myself am in state of sorrow because only yesterday, Ustad Sayyid Naqib Al-Atas passed away. He wrote a great deal about it, Islam and secularism, and the desecularization of thought. So yeah, you can find a lot of people who can tell you that no, it doesn't work like this. Also, if you look at other scholars like Wael Halak, for example, the idea of impossible state, the entire thesis of that book is that you cannot have a state for Muslims which is secular, That is going to be an impossible state, because how would you govern the Islamic life if you don't have the Islamic legal protection around that life? So that is why the idea essentially fails, that you cannot have separate state, which is going to be run on daily basis, and you'll have people who will be making laws, because every law, remember, we have made 2 points so far on this. So this is the third point we're going into now. Every law is informed by a policy, and every policy is informed by certain epistemology. How can you have an Islamic country in which you make laws that are not informed by Islamic epistemology? How exactly? You simply cannot. So this idea of separating the state is fundamentally flawed because of two reasons. A, we've just mentioned. B is because even if you separate the state and the religion, or the religion of Islam in this case, the very next question you will have is, okay, well, the laws that will be made, who will they be made for? If it is a majority Muslim country, then you cannot have laws that are in violation to Islam. It's a very simple stuff. You have not gone into the philosophies of it yet. Not yet. Now, if you make laws, for example, that are going to be more secular in nature, you have two options. Either they will be anti-Islamic, or they will still be pro-Islamic, supporting Islamic life, but they will be informed by a secular epistemology. Now, if they are anti-Islamic, that would be a case for fundamental human rights, because how can you make laws for a Muslim majority country that are against their religion? And we have seen examples of those. As we speak, for example, in Uzbekistan and a number of other countries in Central Asia, we have anti-Islamic laws. For example, you cannot grow beard, or you cannot go to mosques if you are below a certain age, or the prohibitions of wearing hijab and so forth. Now, that is a clear problem with fundamental human rights, because now it is state, it is not just separating the religion from the state. In fact, it is imposing anti-Islamic laws on its citizens. So that's a straightaway problem of fundamental human rights. That was the option A, that they make anti-Islamic laws. Option B was that even though they are seculars, but they still make pro-Islamic laws. Well, if that is the case, then why even become secular? What is the point? If you still have to serve Islam, why not do it from Islamic premise? At least you will be part of a cohesive ecosystem. So you only have two possibilities. So either suppress people or don't suppress people by making Islamic laws, in which case there is no point in being secular at all. So at the state level, you only have these two options. Now let us go into some of the examples, historically speaking, what we have seen. Because seculars, they will always tell you that secularism is good because it is about accepting, it is about tolerating, it is about making sure everyone is equal, and so forth. And I don't deny that you can find the examples of that in certain places, historically speaking, certain areas. Yes, sure you can. But is that the only meaning of it? Because except for some incidental examples that I've just acknowledged can happen and did happen, overwhelming amount of historical data tells us otherwise. So let me give you some examples now. That when an Islamic country is secularized artificially, what tends to happen? So we start from early 1920s in Central Asia. We had secular governments there. Progressively, they took Islam out of public life to start with, under the name of equality. In the name of equality and national cohesion, they banned Quran. So you cannot read Quran anymore. Then they started to destroy, desecrate mosques. They started to turn them into public buildings, for example, or just right out they destroyed them. Data tells us that in around 1911, we had around 26 registered mosques in Central Asia. By 1941, there were less than 1,000. So more than 25,000 mosques. They were removed. They were either destroyed or converted into something else. So people didn't have a place to go to worship. Then came the state-backed hujum campaigns. So Muslim women all of a sudden were not allowed to wear veil or hijab. No, you cannot, because that apparently offended the secular sensitivities. And then we had the laws of religious affiliations, 1929. Now the state was telling Muslims and Muslim teachers and madaris of the time that what sort of Islam can you teach and what sort of Islam you cannot teach. So that is not the case anymore of state separating itself from Islam. It was an aggressive attempt, aggressive endeavor to remove Islam, not from public life, but even from personal life. They started imposing fines for speaking Arabic in public. They started imposing fines for keeping Quran. Even today, I can tell you, I know those people personally who have lived under secular regimes in Central Asia. They tell us that even if there is an old house, which now they want to demolish and reconstruct a new house in the same place, they don't just go and demolish it. What they do is they actually scrape the walls, inch by inch, bit by bit. Why? Because when the ruthless secular governments, they started imposing their secularism on Muslims, and they banned Quran, for example, at that time, people started hiding Quran in different places, including the walls of their houses. So when the secular police will come and they will to conduct the search and so forth, they can't find it. So still to date, many houses, they keep those copies. So carefully those copies are extracted first. Then they make sure that there is no other religious articles hidden elsewhere. Then they demolish it and reconstruct it. That's just one example. We then move to the second example, and we go to the Shah of Iran, who imposed secularism in 1925, and the Iranian Muslims, obviously, they didn't want any of it. Shah came up with a new idea of kashf-e-hijab, a new set of laws that Muslim women cannot wear veil in public. And the police, they were instructed to rip those veils off the Muslim women's faces and tear them apart, then and there. And when people protested, they were killed. Live fire. That is the live ammunition used against the protesters. So again, it was secularism not saying that I am not concerned with your public life. It was, I'm not concerned with your personal life. I only keep myself at the policy level and I separate myself. No, it was, no, you cannot wear hijab or a veil and so forth. We've got second example. You then go to Turkey, for example, Mustafa Kemal's Turkey, which was supposed to be a secular, but we don't see that secular utopia that we are told of so much. What we see instead is that you cannot do adhan in Arabic anymore. You cannot do Islamic rites anymore in Arabic language. You can't even pray in public buildings. The ruthless suppression of Islam. Time and again, we see the same thing. Even today, many Muslim majority, my apologies, many Muslim majority countries that are still secular, we still see the same oppression. We still see the same oppression. So this is the state level secularism. And you can find much worse examples. I mean, you can go into the Great Purges, for example. You look at the how between 1930 and 1937-ish, over 100,000 people of faith were killed through starvation and some beaten to death, some through hard labor and malnutrition and so forth. That is all in Central Asia. And you can find many more examples like that. So the idea of this secular utopia that it's always about the acceptance and tolerance and not interfering with your personal life, we don't see much history supporting that idea. Sure, I acknowledge again, you can find some incidental good examples, but that is not the general state of affairs. So this is one thing. Now, Philosophically speaking, how wise is it for someone to be part of a system, but then don't be part of that system? So it's is or is not. You cannot have simultaneously two things working together. So, for example, if you're on a system of Islam, then you cannot be not on system of Islam, right? So, if I'm a Muslim, for example, I have certain obligations, I have certain rights, and I have a framework against which I have those rights and those obligations. And if that framework is not Islamic anymore, I don't know whether I will be having those rights and whether I should be held accountable for fulfilling those obligations, because that is not applicable to me anymore. And that is, I'm talking about a Muslim majority country, right? So time and again, we see same thing occurring again and again, but this, so far as Islam is concerned, it's very clear. It has its own system. Now, does it mean that Islam prohibits everybody else? Because there is also another problem among some Muslims, that somehow they believe that the imposition of our laws is also mandatory. Now, it isn't. Not non-Muslims. In fact, it goes against Quran. So far as we are concerned, what we say is that because our motto is simple, which is lakum dinukum waliya deen, so you keep your systems, we keep our systems, which means that, you know, if you want to have a world where everybody accepts everybody, this is another way of going about it, that we don't interfere in your system, you don't interfere in ours. But that is not what we see in secular countries. We don't. In fact, the secular as system, it's all about global domination. Think of the Second World War, for example. 3 secular countries, they were at it. You know, they all wanted to have their own systems. One of them got defeated, the fascists. 2 of them, they emerged victorious, that is, communists and liberals. But immediately after the Second World War, a new era, we entered upon that, and that era was now who is going to dominate from these 2. So we had a new set of wars in Korea and Vietnam and South America, different places. New things such as the Jakarta method, they started to come. You might be wondering, we are talking about Muslim youth. Why am I giving you all these examples? Well, I'm giving you these examples because I need to explain to you that the utopia which is sold to us as once secularism is in place, everything is hunky-dory, everything is good, reality does not support it. Because once you understand that, then you'll understand, or you'll ask, okay, what should I do? And that's where Islam comes in, that you need to understand Islam as a system. It has its own politics. It has its own set of statutory obligations, own set of citizens' rights and citizens' obligations, its own sense of fundamental human rights, and its own justice, its own culture, society. Once you understand that project, then you will start to realize that Islam goes way beyond that, offering 5 prayers a day or just keeping the Sawm and annual zakah and whatnot. This is a complete way of life that encompasses your economy, your ibadat, as well as your politics and your courts. Everything, literally everything, the education, the health. Something that we seek in secular systems, because this is how they are presented with, that our job is to let you know, and your job is to just find out that, well, this is not something which is true. So we cannot afford to be part of that identity crisis, because all the examples I've given you, every time when Muslims were thrown into secular systems, that is the Muslim majority countries, the results were catastrophic. So we cannot go into that crisis again and again, particularly this day and age, because we've never seen secularism taking a backseat or step back, never at this level. Even though we had some early signs back in 1990s, there was some hypothesis that we are going to have regional hegemonies, and regional hegemonies mean that you cannot have one universal order. But despite that, we did see one universal order called liberalism right from 1991 I'm not saying that liberal order did not exist before 1991. It certainly did, but it was in competition with communism. But after 1991, it was the only horse in the race. And there were theories of, Francis Fukuyama about the last man, end of history and the last man, positing that now for the rest of the times, liberalism is the only thing which is going to stay. But that is not the case anymore. What we now see, a decline of secularism in its own spiritual homeland. For example, the US politics is far less secular than it was, say, 15 years ago. Now we have a government of people who are not strictly secular in the traditional sense of the word. We've also had Brexit in the UK. That is anti-liberal movement, because liberalism, the European Union was a liberal project with the four fundamental freedoms and so forth, which was all about sort of liberal idea. But people revolted against that, not from liberal premises, but anti-liberal premises. And the same people, if you look at the trends in the elections, you see that they are not with the liberal parties or the secular parties, even though I'm not saying that they've become all devout Christians, but what I'm saying is that secularism is on decline. Then we see same thing in Italy, the powerful government of Italy, for example. It is not a secular government. It did not come into power on secular slogans. It did on religious slogans. Then we see similar patterns in other European countries, Hungary and Austria, and you name it. So slowly, what we see, a neoconservatism emerging. Even people are worried about the right wing, which is on the rise in the West. Well, again, that is not secular either. It's based on religion. So where does that leave us, the Muslims? Are we going to the global change that we are talking about? I've just mentioned the West. We still have India that has a huge policy shift from secularism to Hindutva, not just Hinduism, Hindutva. Constitutionally, yeah, it's still a secular country, but so far as their politics, the political practice is concerned, well, that's not the case anymore. So where does that leave us, the Muslims? If the West is going back to neoconservatism, which is Christianity-based neoconservatism, huge chunk of population, global chunk of population in India is also shifting towards their religion and religious practices. And we see the new wars breaking out in the Middle East and elsewhere that also have very strong religious connotations to it. So what should we do? Can we still afford to think that maybe secularism is the way forward for us? No. The strength in ideas, the desecularization of thought that we need today, it probably has never been so important in the past couple of centuries. Now we need a new thinking paradigm, a new thinking space, that if everyone is getting sick and tired of liberalism, secularism, and so forth, and they're going back to their original systems, what is stopping us? Because our survival can only be in that identity that we truly hold, and that is being Muslim, that transcends everything. Without that, we are nothing. Without that, we are absolutely nothing, because you cannot simply say that, oh, I'm a secular and you have the rise of Hindutva, or I'm a secular and you have rise of religious wars in the Middle East and elsewhere, or I'm a secular and you have secularism taking backseat in its own spiritual homelands. So you have to choose a side, and that side is already there. That side had already chosen you, Islam. So we need to go back to it. Now, this is all the state level stuff we are talking about. Now, we yet have the second part, and I realize we don't have much time left, but still I would like to address that, which is the individual level secularism. That is the desecularization of your policies and your thoughts. That starts with asking a simple question. What does it mean to be a Muslim? I can give you a detailed lecture on that. I can refer you to different books and literature. Sure, by all means, go into that. Or I can share a story with you, a true story. And perhaps that would open a thinking door in your mind, and maybe that will take you somewhere. It's a story about a Pakistani man and a German woman. They got married. and they remained married for 17 years. And the family who uh, arranged the marriage and did all the what we say all the management side of it. I know them personally, so they made all the arrangements and everything. Now, 17 years, they had 4 kids as well, if I remember that correctly. And one day, the wife, the German wife, came to the family who made arrangements 17 years ago and said, I want divorce. Now, mind you, this man, this Pakistani man, he was a Muslim, she was not. And he, as a typical Muslim, as you can imagine, living in the West, doing all sort of things. And the wife knew about it, drinking, promiscuity, this, that, and the other. You can imagine what sort of Muslim I'm talking about, what sort of man I'm talking about. After 17 years of marriage, the wife one day went back to the family that made arrangements and helped them out, said, I want divorce. Help me. And they said, help you getting divorced? Normally, people say, my household is being torn apart. Help me protect it, save it. Well, you're saying, no, you want divorce and you want our help. We can't help you, but surely we would like to ask you why, what happened? And she said, after 17 years, I have become Muslim. I now realize what does it mean for someone to be Muslim. As a mu'mina, that person doesn't deserve to be my husband. I have a special status now because I understand what Islam stands for. I cannot be a wife of that. So it's either he changes or I move on. I know for sure that he's not going to change. He doesn't deserve to be my husband. This is what it means to be a Muslim. Once you understand that it's not a matter of just praying 5 times, which is the fundamental part of our faith. I'm not demeaning that. But what I'm saying is that is just the starting part. That is not the end of the journey. That many Muslims think that, yeah, you prayed 5 times a day, you're a good Muslim. I don't doubt that. What I'm saying is you just open the door. The journey starts from this moment. And then onwards it goes on and on and on. And then we have the science and philosophy and maths and tech development. All of that is encouraged by Islam. That's something that you have to do to find your place in this world. And that is something, my brothers and sisters, I like your attention to. It is the desecularization of thought and finding your right place in the world. What is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to achieve? And if the answer is that I am okay Muslim, I am living in certain systems and I'm living my life every day, maybe it is going to work out for you. But this isn't just about you. It's about your progeny too. Are you preparing them for what is coming forward? Already, if you look at the Islamic eschatology, for example, many of ahadith, way Prophet ﷺ prophesied what is yet to come and how difficult those times would be and who are the people who will survive that. It's all written, it's all part of the record. In fact, there is a specialist study on that as well, which is ongoing for centuries. It's called Fatan. The Fatan studies is not exactly right term, but I'm trying to sort of translate it very loosely. So in the time of fitna, not just one, but fatan, many of them, one after the other, what should we do? What should you be doing? It's all there. In fact, I'm making a complete series on that, that people know that you don't have to read that as a story of somebody else because you are part of that story. You are a character, each and every one of you. We have obligations. We have been addressed by the Prophet ﷺ himself in terms of those people and those people and those people. That's us. That's you. So we have a job to do now. So we cannot have a system in place in which we say that, look, what we have done is enough, or what we are doing is enough, that is doing our prayers and everyday rituals and performing Hajj once a life and having Ramadan once a year and so forth. Yeah, all that is wonderful, but that is the starting point. Now we need to have a different mindset. Now we need to start reading the Islamic eschatology, start finding our path in the world, because we cannot afford to to have a situation in which we are being led by either liberal secularism or communist secularism. No, sir. Being a Muslim means having our own economy and politics. And I'm not one of those people who will tell you that you have to stand up and you change the world. I say, look, it's all there. Even IMF, they use Islamic products, Islamic financial products. Even they do it because they realize the power of it. You will not find any stock market in the world that does not feature Islamic. I mean, if there is some, then I must be mistaken, but to my knowledge, all the major stock markets, they feature Islamic financial products, which means that they are as relevant as they ever were. Same goes for the Islamic principles. I mean, the people who live in the West, they will understand this, that the Islamic theory we read about how to behave with neighbors and not to interfere in their life and making sure that, you know, you don't place garbage outside and or block someone's path and so forth. All of that Islamic theory, we see that in practice in the West, which means that those Islamic, the theory of Islam is actually being followed by millions of people in the West, which means, well, we can do that too. So even that is not out of date. So what exactly is out of date? Well, I can tell you. The idea that Islam is out of date is out of date. That's not the case anymore. We can see a tremendous revival of it. And we need to keep on working towards that, because ultimately what matters to us is that you start learning Islam for yourself. Now, how do you do that? Well, a couple of ways. And it's, you know, your journey must start from a very simple verse in Quran, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked two rhetorical questions. First rhetorical question, that do you think that you were created without any reason? And secondly, and do you think that you will not come back to me? So you have no purpose and that you will not come to me. It's in Surah Mu'minun towards the end. It's very, very simple. Two rhetorical questions. Now, what is a rhetorical question? Well, a rhetorical question is essentially, it's where a statement is made, but it is framed as a question. If I can simplify that, if I say, why is it so hot today? I'm not asking you to give me the technical details of why is it so hot. I am making a statement that it's very hot today, but I'm putting it as a question. Or when will you start behaving? I'm not asking for a particular date after which I can expect a different behavior. I'm saying that your behavior is not up to a mark. So that is what rhetorical question is. So these two rhetorical questions Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked. But these are the two statements. Number one, that you do have a purpose. And number two, you will have to answer for it. Now, it gives me goosebumps that when your creator tells you have a purpose, you better listen. You better listen, because the second rhetorical question is even more dangerous, which is, do you think you will not come to me? Means, do you think that Allah will not ask you of it? So now, if you link it back to what we were saying earlier, that your only option is to go back to Islam, that starts with this ayah and ask, what is your purpose? Why are you here? You were not here to pay off your mortgage for 25 years. Surely that is an important thing, presuming it was halal mortgage. And you get the idea. All the other material things that we do, sure, they are very important. At the end of the day, we are Khalifa of this earth. So surely we cannot deny any of these things. They are important. But is that really the purpose? Is that really the purpose? The answer is no. But you've been given that purpose. How do you find that? There are good ways. For example, you look at your talent. You look at what are you good at naturally. And whatever you're good at, that is the field in which you have expertise, and that is your purpose. It's a natural system, because it is already ordained by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that no man, no woman will be pressed beyond the endurance. So yes, you will have hardships, but those hardships are proportionate to your level of tolerance, your endurance. It doesn't go beyond that. So Allah doesn't give you more hardship than you can take. Then why Allah Azza wa Jal will give you certain talents if there was no purpose for it? Or why would give you a purpose if he doesn't give you any talent to fulfill that purpose? So your talents, what you're good at naturally, that could be problem solving, could be providing leadership. Maybe you're very good at putting people together. Maybe by putting people together, meaning that, sometimes people, they have different ideas and there are always clashes, but you always find a third person who can bring them to a common ground. Those people can be excellent lobbyists. We need top class Muslim lobbyists. How to do that? Maybe you are very good at reading patterns in what is happening in society, which means that you can be a very good researcher, and you can convert your research into some actionable intelligence. Maybe you are good at teaching. Sure, look at what else you're good at, what else you can teach. So whatever you do, if you bring that under big project of Islam, that now I'm not doing it just because I do it on daily basis, but in fact I do it because this is something I have to do, Islamically speaking, that every step you take, it's already taking you away from secularism and towards your religion, because now you have a different idea in mind. So that is essentially what we have to do. So it's not something which is completely in void. It is not something completely disconnected, because all of a sudden you are connected with a bigger and wider system. So you have to know what sort of personality you have. Are you a king or are you a kingmaker? Different skills, all of them equally useful. And this is exactly what we see in Sira, the specialization. It's quite interesting, actually, if you think about it, because what usually tends to happen is that, if I can put it this way, if you look at the historical patterns, what we see is in Sira, that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he didn't set any criteria as to what should you have achieved before you become a Muslim. It was literally any person asking basic questions, and upon his satisfaction, he would recite Shahada, becomes Muslim. That's it. So one gateway, one simple gateway for everyone to bring in. But the moment the person is inside that gate, very quickly that person was given a specialist field, which is why you will not find Khalid bin Walid radiallahu ta'ala anhu in history solving complex fiqh issues. You won't. And you will not find Abu Huraira radiallahu ta'ala anhu, for example, for turning the tables on a battlefield using his military strategy. You won't. The academic Sahaba and Sahabiyat, you will find them on one side. The battle strategist, you will find them in one cluster. The business class, you will find that separate. The people who were good at running economy or system building, you will find them in different. In fact, you can also look into another example, that once Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, he was reading Bible, and Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbade him, said, no, don't read it. So why is it that Zayd bin Thabit radiallahu anhu, he not only learned Aramaic or the Hebrew that was spoken at the time, he was allowed that. Umar bin Khattab was not. Why? What's the difference? Both Sahabas. So let me tell you the difference. The difference is that Zayd bin Thabit radiallahu anhu was an academic Sahabi. It was important for him to know those languages because he would write letters and documents for Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his secretariat, of inviting other people and conducting research as to who's doing what in what area and what sort of language to be used and so forth. It doesn't mean that Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu was any less in that regard, but what it meant was that if Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu had become a purely academic Sahabi, then he would not have delivered what he delivered as second caliph, as one of the most powerful and most just rulers ever to have been seen by the world. Because the Prophet ﷺ could see that the Umar bin Khattab, maybe he is not suited for academic endeavors. Right? So he's a different material, and he was given that. Everybody was given that. This is exactly what we have to do today. So we all are Muslims already. So the first part, which is entering through the gate, we've done that already. And the second part is finding that specialism. What is that specialism? And by specialism, I don't mean that you have to restrict yourself to just one thing. That itself is not a very good idea. So specialism means being good at 3 to 5 things, but those 5 things must be complementing each other. So you could be good at IT and then AI as well. So IT and AI, they they complement each other. You should not be good at, say, for example, IT and something which is completely against that. I'm thinking of a couple of disciplines, but then I also know a couple of people who actually are like that. They're called polymaths, who are good at multiple disciplines, but they are the rare beings in the system. They are not. That's not the general paradigm. So the idea is find your complementing themes, 3 to 5. Start reading the International Open University. I understand tons of courses available. Find what you're good at. Find the course. Formalize it. Shine through that, and then set up targets for yourself that with this skill, I am going to serve my religion like this. And by serving religion, I don't mean that you don't look after your family and all that. What I'm saying is that you're born with that package. That is your values and your talents. You can use them for this worldly life and simultaneously serving your religion, because that is the only option we have. Now, today you might be listening to me because we haven't entered into the era which is going to be even more red in terms of blood shedding. Okay, these are the topics that now we talk about. The global wars are rising. The entire world is now shaking up. So you need to think of your next generations. What will happen to them? Are you going to provide solid Islamic foundations that you have to start working on today? You have to do it. And then they come in later and take benefit of your work. Or are you going to restrict yourself to that, whatever I've done, that's just good enough, and that's that? That surely is not a great idea. Okay. I think we have covered a few things. Let me quickly go through the comments and see if there are any questions. And whilst I'm doing that, if you do have a question, you can put it now. And if it is something that we need to address, I certainly will do that. Okay. Right. Okay. So far, okay. I haven't. Sorry, it's a summary of the comment that I failed in 8th grade. I don't speak very good English. It's okay, buddy. We'll do many of these in Urdu as well. Okay. Okay, I don't do the fiqh-related questions since that is not my domain. Right. Ramadan Mubarak to all. Yeah, sure, no problem, sir. Okay, you've reminded of the emails that have been sent to me. Well, thank you. I do go through them whenever I can. Right. Okay, I don't see much meaningful stuff there. So let me just quickly go through a couple more and see. Yeah, you love me. Thank you very much indeed. Love you back, brother. Truly appreciate that. Okay. Right. So how can I call Muslims entrenched with ideas of Aqamat-ud-Din? So how can all Muslims entrenched with the idea of Aqamat-ud-Din? Well, we are already entrenched. And yeah, maybe not entrenched. Yeah, we have the theory of it. It's a very good question. I am of the opinion the Muslim majority countries, they need to include the project of Aqamat-ud-Din within the curriculum. So the children from a very early age, they should start learning about it. And as they grow, they should be made aware of what the economic system is, what the legal system is of Islam, politics and so forth. So they don't have to sort of juggle through, okay, well, this is the international order and I have to abide by that. This is the Islamic order and I have to abide by that. Islam gives you a lot of space to have the Aqamat Deen and yet coexist with the rest of the world. In fact, that's what Islam is all about. So this can happen through education, right from the early age and all the way to the university level. If that becomes the part of the educational ecosystem and paradigm, surely we can make a lot of difference within 15, 20 years, no more than that. Okay, there's a question, how do I get revivalist membership? No, right now you should be asking how can you take enrollment in the International Open University. The revivalists is a different topic, we'll talk about it later. And how can you do that, by the way? Let me quickly, in fact, let me take a moment, and even though we are towards the end, let me quickly add some information regarding the courses. Just one thing, the little ticker that you see, I'm sorry, I should have edited that before, but we are. This is the information I'm sharing now that we are pretty much towards the end of it, so you can take note of it. You have a phone number as well as you have the website. Sorry, I'm just quickly. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, got Brother Furqan's phone number there, as well as the website. If you are interested in, but let me quickly see if I've got that. Have I got that right? Have I or have I? Right. Yeah, I've got that right. So this is the phone number and this is the email address. By all means, you can call IOU. You can go on their website and look at the courses, explore through, and then join whichever course you prefer. This is basically what we have for today for you, ladies and gentlemen. I have covered, I mean, I did go rather quickly than I had anticipated, but realizing now that we don't have any questions, I think it probably is a good time to finish it. Before I leave, there have been some more comments coming through. Let me quickly see if there is anything I can respond to before we log off. So there's a question, should we send our children to school knowing that what they will become secular by our education system? Well, it depends on what country you are in. I will never dissuade you from sending your children to school. You should. But if you think that the school is the only thing which is going to have an impact on the child, then we are getting it wrong, my dear brother. Because out of 24 hours, your child will stay at school for, what, 6 hours at most? For the rest of 18 hours, that's where you come in, right? So if you have the Islamic system at your home, and by that I don't mean that the child will be glued to you for 18 hours, but what I'm saying is that it will not be with the school. So school teaches physics and biology and science, and all those are fundamentally important things. We should all have that. I am right now, this is the session for IOU, so I will not speak about the revivalists, but a brief comment that we want to revive the Islamic systems in accordance with, or at least with bearing similarity with what we call the golden age of Islam, where people were physicists and they are biologists and they were scientists and they were using the modern language, even astrophysicists, and they were wonderful Muslims. So sure, school teaches all these things, but you need to connect everything which is taught by school to the religion of Islam, because you won't be lying by doing that. So this is what a better way, sir. Okay. Okay, there's a question on Stanley Walt, but I'm going to ignore that, brother, because that is not something that we are dealing with today. And there is a comment to read the previous comment, but I cannot find the previous comment, not like this, because they don't come in clusters. You see, they just come like one by one. They are not stacked together. On a know how the reason why Muslims used to take over others' land, that this might disallow for minorities. Oops. Okay. All right. No, I think that's pretty much it for today. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, thank you so very much indeed for being with me. And I certainly thank Dr. Bilal Phillips for giving me this honor, speaking for his organization. And lastly, I'd say that I can't um, stipulate this enough that we need to get ourselves educated. And IOU is certainly one of the platforms that gives you the education. And the best thing is that it's your pace, your time, it's online. You can do it at your own pace and you can build it around your own timetable and schedule. And along the way, get ready for timeout buzzer. I don't know how did that come. Sorry, normally the software we're using, normally it is used by the other members of Iman Union. So I'm kind of simpleton there. Yeah, I think there's the one button I had to press it, which I did. Okay, that's gone, just in case if you're wondering that I'm about to be buzzed out. That's actually true, I am. Thank you very much indeed. May Allah bless you. May Allah give you every success in here and hereafter. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.